Welcome inside another episode of Point to the Passer. I am joined once again by Jonathan, my friend. We have been in full NBA Summer League mode. A lot to break down on this show. Caleb Wilson, man, we knew he was special when he was at Carolina, but the hype, I think Chicago's realizing it. We're going to get into a bunch of Summer League action. Really good stuff in his first matchup versus Cam Boozer. First things first, just want to check in with you. How's it going? Handling the heat? How's life? What's good with you?
It's good. It has been really hot, but maybe not as hot and on fire as the summer court in summer league
As
when
Caleb
Caleb
from
Wilson
three? Yeah.
took the court against Cam Boozer. Go figure that the same guy that he played in AAU with the Knight Riders, Cam Boozer, and then goes up against at Duke. Obviously, that's the first game in his debut in summer league is against Cam Boozer in Memphis. That was electric. So honestly, that's the biggest thing on my mind was that Friday night prime time slot. And as my brother Brian, aka Badams, likes to say, this was a volume on game. You could hear the crowd pops, especially in that second half when Caleb hit one three after another. And the degree of difficulty too was pretty impressive. So I'm ready to just jump into that because, like you said, as good as we knew him to be, he somehow has gotten that much better in the last 5 months since we last saw him at Carolina.
And we knew it was coming. I mean, the drive is Caleb. We saw it game to game, setting the phone backgrounds on his phone and starting with DP at the very beginning of the year, taking everything personally in the words of MJ. So you see shades of it. You see shades of the Mamba mentality in him with his drive. And I think, man, the ceiling, as much as we thought it was high, I think I'm just really hyped for it. I'm not an NBA guy, and here I am tuning into Summer League. So that should tell you exactly how special he is. But he was also aching to get back at Boozer. He wanted him in Cameron round two. UNC Duke got injured. If anything, that was his drive to come out and show that, hey, Cam may have got drafted number three and me number four, but let me show you how I've improved my 3-point shot and drop 30. It's great.
He basically said as much. I mean, to see some of the things he posted about on social media, but also just his answers that are always really thoughtful in press conferences. One of his posts showed a picture of him, I think it was maybe post surgery, like right after his surgery 5 months ago, and saying that this was for you. That he got emotional, he talked about because he loves playing basketball so much and he's just happy to be able to be back and to be able to play again. But then the other piece of it, the competitive drive, like you're talking about, he had talked quite a bit about the fact that he was getting to play, well, in theory, he was going to play the three picks ahead of him, starting with Boozer, and that he has a different mentality. That actually, that second game, when he was supposed to go up against Peterson and Peterson doesn't play, he said it threw him off a little bit because he was locked in and ready for that battle with Darren. So you're right. I think he took that with Boozer differently. And then you have the Duke component of it. Then you have the fact that these guys have known each other. I think they're probably friends at this point too. So all of those things, plus the chip on his shoulder, the fact that people were saying this guy can only dunk, he can't shoot. You can't take him higher than this. And so to me, that was clearly a point of contention for him. And he made a point in that first game to take outside shots. He didn't have any dunks. He clearly was out there showing off the 3-point shooting and 7 for 11 from three. I mean, it was electric.
Yeah, it's not even like can only dunk. He was like, let me show you I can still dunk, but also let me extend my range. It's obviously something he's been working on. I think we saw flashes of it at Carolina, not necessarily from three, because that wasn't how he fit into the system. And Caleb talked about that a little bit too. But you saw the long jumper, even in the game versus Duke. I remember one from the corner right over Cam Boozer, basically fading away. So the shot's there. The form looks really pretty. Yeah, like you mentioned, just from the maturity side of the press interviews and his appearances and how he carries himself. I think I was just kind of shadowing the Chicago Bulls Reddit board and the amount of people saying, "Oh, I see what people are saying. This guy's kind of the truth. I'm surprised we got him at number four." It's the mentality. It's the mentality plus the athleticism, and he's going to keep gaining a little size. And the more the stronger that he can become, even better for the NBA. So I just see the upside is so unbelievable. And the icing on the cake in that game against DP or DNP did not play, as we've been calling him, throw a little shade. I mean, Caleb wanted him, and seeing that
Yeah.
one clip where they zoomed in on Darren's face after that dunk, and I think he was a little shook. He was like, I can't believe what I just saw. To be fair, neither could we. That still shot of him just extending his arm back, I was like, there's no way he actually made it to the rim. And it's unbelievable. The athleticism. I think we're so special. He's so special. We're so lucky to have had him at Carolina and like what he could mean for this program going into the NBA, being a superstar. It's been a minute since we've had a superstar. Like I can admit that. I don't like to admit that because the Dukies love to hop on board and say, look at all the NBA product we make, but it has been a minute. I think he could reach that ceiling, and man, I'm just invested. I know you are.
How can you not be
Yeah,
romantic about
summer league.
basketball, summer league, Caleb Wilson to the Bulls, all of those things, the talk about that he can't speak for these other guys who aren't playing, but he loves basketball and he's going to play whatever chance he can get. Uh, yeah, it's the mentality, like you said. And I mean, a couple of things. Like the first game against, and the thing with Summer League, if you haven't really tuned into it this year or before, is the first games are the most important ones for these top prospects because typically players do get shut down after a couple of games if you're one of those top prospects. So that's not uncommon. And as much as Caleb's been talking about it, that's nothing against or abnormal from AJ or Darren and these guys who didn't play against Caleb. Uh, so having said that, that first game there was a lot riding on it, and not only is he hitting the number of threes that he did, we're talking about contested threes, like you're talking about. I mean, he hit some at UNC, but he only hit seven on the year out of what was it, 7 out of 29, and he hit seven in that first game, and he's coming off of screens. He's coming off of all kinds of actions. He's on the ball, step backs really deep at the end there. He hit one at the buzzer after the game was over. They're down four, but he still drills it from deep. So you're just seeing the variety of things that, frankly, we're seeing posts from NBA fans and accounts saying this is scary. Like this looks really legit in terms of it's different. He was more catch and shoot from three at UNC and obviously very low volume. And this is high accuracy. He's 48% over 3 games. And the degree of difficulty has been really impressive. The dunk you mentioned, yeah, part of that was in the second game, they were, as he said, treating him like a shooter now, versus the first game was like, well, we're scouting you as a non-shooter, so we're going to let you do that. That didn't work out well for Memphis, even though they won the game. They didn't win the hype, I would say. But
Mhm.
that second game, he's able to use some head fakes, some hesitation moves to get by Matthew Cleveland, who we know from playing at Florida State and Miami. And then he goes, it's not like he was going at a guard at the rim. He goes against Jonas Adu, who we know from playing at Tennessee, almost 7 feet, and pretty sturdy guy. He's what, like 240 plus pounds. Was actually probably one of the last calls recruits for Roy Williams, who wanted Jonas at the time to go to Carolina. We know that whole backstory too when he transferred, but all that to say, this is a guy that it's not an easy person to go over, especially from that distance. So we see the highlight reels from Caleb that get you excited, but then the skill level that he's showing, that's where the shooting, the ability with the ball in his hands, that's the part that you see like, what is the limit for this guy? That's where it gets scary.
And the defensive side that we
Hmm.
haven't spoken to yet. I mean, three blocks in one of the games, and not to mention just getting in the way of passing lanes as well. His reach, I mean, he's so long. Like we noticed that at Carolina, he has a chase down block in the first game that he plays in the NBA, and then times at Carolina where he was just all over the place and just like swarming some of these players to not allow them a bucket. So in a league that doesn't necessarily prioritize defense, his passion and his drive, wanting to be that good of a defender, I think sets him apart as well. And I'm just excited to see where he goes.
Well, he wasn't always, he had the splash plays, right? The flashy plays at UNC, but he always wasn't always fundamentally sound, especially off the ball. He'd lose focus at times. And so he's got room to grow there. But yeah, in terms of just the raw tools like you're talking about and the passion, I don't see that many other guys during these games clapping the way he does after he makes a play on defense. He gets a deflection, he gets a steal, and turnover going the other way. So you're exactly right. And he has the potential to be a game changer on both ends. But that emerging component of him having the ball in his hands, which just was not the game plan, didn't need to be the game plan at UNC. Um, and let's talk about this real quick because there are folks out there, even the national level media, that took the time to talk about where was this at UNC? Why was he not
You
given the
knew the
green light?
narrative was coming. You knew the narrative
It
was
was
coming.
it was always going to be coming, and um, Caleb handled that really well to say basically, look, like that wasn't my role because it didn't need to be because I was putting up 19 plus in almost 10 rebounds a game. I didn't need to go out there. Plus, his shot clearly has developed in 5 months. So you can see it's smoother, it's quicker. He's more confident. He tried some step backs. Even I remember that exhibition against BYU. Talk about another one where he's lock screen ready because it was against AJ, and he tried to step back and he wasn't ready. Like it wasn't quite there. It needed to stay in the oven, bake a little bit longer, and now you see him just hitting these shots with a lot of confidence. Um, so that to me is just not accurate,
Yeah,
right?
it's a
It's
lazy
just
take.
not. Yeah, it really is, and I appreciate how he handled it as well. I also appreciate them on ESPN and on Prime, showing a lot of Hubert Davis. That Hubert is out there. He's not even coaching Caleb anymore.
Hmm.
And he's not even representing UNC anymore, but he's out there because he cares about Caleb and all of these guys that he's seeing in summer league. So I was really happy to see Hubert there and not a surprise either because we know what type of person he is. And then credit to him because okay, you could try to make the take that, well, why was this not happening at Carolina? Let's look at what Caleb did at UNC, where he was not projected to go in the top five picks before the year. Certainly was thought to be a lottery pick, but his play at Carolina, how he was used, actually elevated him in one of the best draft classes we've seen in probably what, like 20 years.
Yeah,
So,
easily.
so I'm happy for Hubert. He's a winner in this to me. Very happy for Caleb because I think of all the players coming out of summer league, Debanza played well, put up good numbers. Peterson played well when he played, put up good numbers. Boozer put up solid numbers. He looks doing Boozer things, just very solid,
Hmm.
methodical,
Yeah.
fundamental.
Hmm.
But nobody's coming out of this with the hype level and the people saying like maybe this is another generational superstar.
Yeah.
We'll see on that. I hear the folks who say you can't have 25 generational players every year, right? Or a generational player every year. It waters it down, but there's a chance. He's got the ability to really be that next great player, and he's clearly got his sights set on it as well.
Yeah, I see him kind of as a combination of the two Kobe's right now. He's bringing the Mamba mentality in terms of just general work ethic. He's bringing the Kobe White energy, jumping around, clapping. You remember how Kobe was at UNC? How much fun was he to watch, and how much fun is he still to watch in the NBA? You know, that the combination of the two, I think I think it's really special and really unique. And the most hype I've been about a player previously before this was Steph Curry. And that was because I got to watch Steph in college when I was at App State. Got to boo him when he came to the Holmes Convocation Center in Boone, front row, 3,000 people there, no one there to see Steph at the time. And then you saw what Steph did. So you get a player who's that driven and that talented, and you know, I just think the upside is huge. So not just Caleb representing, but there's some other Tar Heels out there. Vesar, you know, his former postman down low. That's why he wasn't shooting threes at Carolina. He had Vesar to work with. Big V's doing big things too, you know, down with the Hawks.
He is. He had a couple of really solid games, highlighted by uh, Monday night, where he put up 20 points for the Hawks. Especially that second half, you really got to see the things that we, maybe he's not second half Henry because that seems to be reserved for Marcus, right? Marcus Page, but he's had several big second halves at UNC, including that Duke game at home where he comes to life and really starts to play more physical. It kind of happened in this game against the Celtics on Monday. 7 of 12 from the field, 4 of 6 from three,
Yep.
4 rebounds, 3 assists, just stuffed the stat sheet. I saw a clip of him running a fast break and dishing in transition, in traffic too. So he just is a versatile player that I think the Hawks are going to be really happy. I think Henry's going to be happy too because he has real possibility here to get some playing time and be in the rotation in year one. So for all the talk about his slide in the draft, ultimately, well, again, he would have wanted to go in the first round, and the pay structure that his contract is ultimately going to be is less than what he would have gotten in the first round, but it's the same as those first couple picks in the second round. So ultimately, I think he's going to be really happy with how this works out if he has the opportunity that seems like ahead of him to get a good amount of playing time. But happy for him that he shined. And I do think with his shooting ability, but also his length and athleticism, that he's going to carve out a role this year.
Yeah, I hope so too. I see the potential again. We all saw it last year. That 3-point stretch is something you need in the NBA, and he showcased it. I mean, being one of our best 3-point shooters consistently all year. First time we've really had that 7-footer who can hit threes. So great element to the team last year. And then Seth Trimble dropping 24 against the Clippers on Wednesday as well. Love to see Seth doing big things. We're gonna get into a little bit of the fifth year options for Seth. Let me just tease that out there real quick with the NCAA ruling, not to get in the nitty gritty, but how about Seth's performance? Always one of a kind player. What'd you see from him getting to the hoop and, Seth being Seth?
It was Seth being Seth, and yeah, it was. So I didn't watch the game last night, the one where he blew up, but I watched that one with the Bulls where he was going against Caleb, and it was Seth being Seth. It was him getting to the rim. He still struggles at times to finish at the rim, but when he has enough space, look out. He had a really nice dunk in that game. And then you see his athleticism and his explosiveness. So it was great to see that last game that they had against the Clippers would have been, we're recording on the 16th on Thursday. That was on the 15th, and he went for 24 points, 8 for 12 from the field, 2 for 5 from three. You love to
Ooh,
see that kind of
nice.
efficiency from him. And so that's exciting. I'm happy for him because I think I may have mentioned even in our last podcast that we went out to Portsmouth, Virginia, that's not too far from us. And one of the pre-draft tournaments that happens every year for seniors is the Portsmouth Invitational, and he had a absolutely disgusting poster. I feel bad for Jalen Washington because it was on Jalen Washington at the game we were at, and he had a couple in that tournament. But you just see what he can bring as a slasher. Um, it'll take some time to I think for him to find a spot. Like hopefully he gets a two-way opportunity. I think that'd be good for him. And maybe he can kind of get more of a rhythm in games where there's times where he gets tunnel vision a little bit. You even see this in some of these games and forces it. But if he can pick his spots more and slashing, you see the result here. So I'm excited for him because he works really hard and such a great representative of the university. So I'm hoping for Seth that he gets a two-way, hopefully, or a favorable contract. But otherwise, like you said, there are other potential options on the table for him if he wants a fifth year in college.
Yeah, which is wild. College basketball, just you think it's out of control and then it gets more out of control and then it tries to tame itself and then something else comes down. So we're gonna get to that in just a minute, but I also want to give a shout out to Drake Powell on the Nets, dropping 18, going 6 for 10, 4 for 7 from three on Tuesday. Always loved watching Drake at Carolina. Nice to see him doing good things with the Nets. So, uh,
Big for him because prior to that, he had just had an awful stretch shooting it
yeah.
in summer. So he broke out in this game, which is great because he is a guy that I feel like can stick in the NBA.
Hmm.
Kind of wish he had come back just to have more time to develop.
Yeah.
And
One more
I
year.
think you're seeing that a little bit because he's not some of these other guys who are alphas, right? Who like a Caleb, you don't have any concerns about a different level of player, right? But
Sure.
Drake is somebody that I think could have used more time to settle in, be more of a primary scorer last year. But I'm hoping he gets some time with the Nets this year to really get his feet under him, and hopefully we'll see him in the league for a long time because he's. I'll never forget that block and hurdle he had early in the season last year. I mean, some of the stuff that he did,
Yeah.
we legitimately have not seen before, which is saying something because there's a lot of elite, outrageous athletes that have come through Carolina.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Let's get into a little bit of the NCAA ruling that came down recently. This is specific to the state of Ohio currently. Jonathan, I'm gonna let you speak to it a little bit high level. We don't want to get too granular with it as there's a lot of moving parts, and honestly, some of the legal jargon is a little boring, and you just kind of have to let these things play out the way they do sometimes. So, This potential ruling will go into effect August 1st, talking about fifth-year players. So, what's come of this Ohio case? There's a little kind of quirky backstory on how it came to be as well. It is what it is, but the NCAA doing NCAA things.
Yeah, I mean, you alluded to this the mess of college basketball right now. I mean, part of this is I feel like the NCAA had Pandora's box on a table for multiple years, and they're like, as long as this just stays closed. Now, we're not going to do anything to protect it. We're not going to do anything to make sure anybody, nobody else can open this, but we're just going to hope that it stays closed.
Hmm.
And with the portal and NIL opening the box, and now from there, we've just seen how this has evolved with no regulation. But specific to this, the 5-and-5 rule is multiple components. The main one that I'll focus on here is that now players have to can play up to 5 years, but they have to do that in 5 years. So there's no more redshirt years. You're just going to play those 5 years. Injury as well. There is still going to be an opportunity for waivers, but the goal is to reduce the number of 7 and 8 year
Hmm.
players we've seen, and then there's also an age limit to this as well. So that should curtail some of the older international players that we've seen coming in also. So all of those things I think are positive. Where where per usual they were not as proactive or forward thinking as they could have been is look, the COVID year that was granted, I'm of the idea that this was a good thing, right? To allow folks to have an
Hmm.
extra year during that time. That that was the last group of those players was with RJ Davis 2 years ago. So they got a fifth year. Seth Trimble's year didn't have a COVID year, but they also are not going to benefit from this 5-and-5. So they're the only class here, that class of 22 in high school, that these guys exhausted their eligibility, a lot of them this last year. They don't get the benefit of the 5-and-5. So they're the only group. You have the COVID group, and now you have this next group after them that would get a fifth year. And that was always going to cause problems.
Hmm.
Why the NCAA didn't just say, you know what, let's put this in play last year so you don't have a lapse a year in between the COVID year and this new rule. That would have made way more sense, and you avoid all of this mess that's going to happen
Well,
here.
that's why they didn't do it. They don't do things that
Yeah,
make sense.
right, exactly. Yeah, it's a lot like I mentioned my toddler that I have. You tell him to do something, and he's going to do the opposite. And that's pretty much the NCAA is actually listens less well than a toddler, I feel like, at this point. Anyway, that aside, so the whole thing that we're seeing now is, as expected, there would be lawsuits. That's what happens every time the NCAA tries to enforce something right now is they're going to get sued. And this is happening again. And you mentioned in Ohio, the case, there's several state cases. One is in Ohio, and the judge there just granted last week an injunction for 15 players who exhausted their eligibility in the state of Ohio to play college basketball next season. Um, I I haven't verified this, so I need to go back and maybe I'll follow up next week and make sure. But I heard somewhere that the judge went to one of the Ohio schools, and we've seen this in other cases last year with some of the injunctions in Alabama. You see alumni of specific schools, and there's motivation there to make things happen. I can't verify that now, but we see things like this where there's a lot of people invested in these decisions.
Hmm.
The high level view, though, that I think the thing to take away is so now this injunction is in place. So theoretically, if the season started today, these guys could play next year. You have other state cases. Tennessee's another state that there's a case there. Jalen Washington actually is involved in that one with Vanderbilt. And then there's a couple of federal cases that Kate Tyson is tied to one of the big
Hmm.
ones that is happening out of Colorado. And that one could have ripple effects because at the federal level, these state cases are for now going to be like these individual players granting them injunctions to play next year. The higher level federal case could just open the floodgates. And the sense is that this is going to happen. And Matt Norlander at CBS was at Summer League. He was at the AAU tournament for EYBL for Nike in Vegas as well. And he was talking to college coaches there. And basically said like this is going to happen. It's just a matter of time. It's not an if, a when, and not just for players who exhausted their eligibility that are not in summer league, but potentially these guys who we just watched in summer league. We might as well have been, watching them to scout them for their next college team too. Um, so none of that has happened yet, but we have not seen the NCAA be able to enforce their rules. So it would not be surprising if we have guys who just played in summer league who then come back to college, and who knows what that means for if they transfer or not, if they can, all of those things. You summed it up really well at the beginning of this, which is
Ooh,
it's a mess.
yeah,
It's an absolute mess. But the thing to know is this is probably going to happen at this point, and that has ripple effects for all these other players who transferred or came out of high school who expected a certain amount of playing time or they're fighting for a role. Um, are they now going to have to compete with some of these what would be fifth year seniors and just a late window of transfers that were not expected and not accounted for?
yeah, wow. Excellent breakdown there from our legal expert, Jonathan Adams. We don't often ask you to do that, but well done, and I know our listeners will appreciate the good explainer there. So, fascinating case. I see it teams potentially like Michigan, who LJ Kaysen, late transfer after the Dusty May announcement that he's going to the Mavericks, suddenly without a real point guard, or needing someone to step into that role. Making changes this late to a roster really throws
Wait, are you
things,
saying that Michigan's without a real point guard?
throwing a little shade.
Okay, I was just checking. I love that for you. I just didn't want that to go just by without me commenting on it. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Anyway, go
So
ahead.
they pretty much, I mean, they ran a two-point guard system last year. Like Elliott became their guy, but Kaysen was huge for them as
He
well.
was. He
He was
was.
he was money. Again, that's why they won the championship. Dusty was great. That team was stacked. But like Kaysen was pretty.
Kaysen wasn't the MOP of the tournament, but he was great.
He was great. Yeah, yeah. Look, if one shade can get thrown our way from the Cadeaux, another shade can get thrown back.
Hey, I'm a full proponent of that. I just want it almost went over my head. So anyway,
Yeah, just
go
keeping you
ahead.
sharp. So, yeah. So I see it affecting teams like who are still out there looking for some roster fills. The transfer portal doesn't always treat every team well. It's just the nature of the chaos of it. And so suddenly you have this time where, you jump into August, and if this thing does happen and you have players that were just completely unexpected coming back, it will be fascinating to watch. And this is where I wonder too, like, you better make sure whatever legal contracts of playing somewhere, you better make sure you have all this in writing and binding agreements, because this can get really, really complicated really quickly about, hey, we're going to bring in one player who, for instance, you get a player in summer league who was maybe NBA bound, looking to be on a roster, comes back to college, bumps somebody else off. He's upset about playing times. Again, you mentioned the ripple effect of like what this could look like. And it's uncharted territory. We just haven't seen anything like this. And I feel like, again, I say that every year. A few years ago, it was, oh my God, Caleb Love transferred. Now that's normal. And we got Harrison Ingram, we got Cormac Ryan. So you get used to the updates, and it's like the NCAA still finds a way to make things even more complicated. It's fascinating to me the chaos that they are able to invoke. So again, I appreciate your breakdown about it all. It will be interesting to see if it affects Carolina. Do UNC fans give Cade Tyson another chance?
Look, I didn't mean to laugh that hard at that. Yeah, if it was me, no, that'd be tough. That'd be tough. I'm
New
glad
coach,
for
new
him.
system. I don't know, man.
I'm happy for him that it went well at Minnesota. And would wish him and Kyan Evans well at Minnesota next year. Um, the interesting thing that this doesn't impact UNC, but you're saying like there are certain teams that if they have a hole, this makes a lot of sense. And Gonzaga is one of those programs because
Oh
literally the
yeah,
same week they lost who they thought was going to be their starting point guard, Mario Saint Superi, Super Mario, one of the best
so
names
good. Yeah,
in college basketball, came over from Spain last year and then was with the team getting ready for the season and had this
said
you
peace.
just can't say no to contract
Yeah,
in the upwards of like $15 million or something, and goes back to Spain. Yeah, and
It's
the coaches
incredible. Yeah.
apparently this happened like overnight. And their other point guard that was going to come in, Jack Cahill, was from Germany, and he goes to the draft kind of unexpectedly. So they have a hole. So they could be a team that brings somebody in. I think from a Carolina perspective, I would kind of hope that they don't mess with what they have. Now, if you have somebody who doesn't make it over for whatever reason, and we're still waiting for Seyon Kaita to come over, I think he's home in Mali at this point, so, or maybe he's in Spain. But either way, he's not on campus yet. So I think that would be the only way if you're missing a rotation player, because otherwise you really have a chance to upset the delicate balance of all these guys that you've already signed, you've already paid,
Yep.
and they already have an expectation, not of I'm going to play this number of minutes, but here's my general role,
Hmm.
versus bringing in a veteran who's expecting to play 30 minutes at this point. It just doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, and this whole thing is obviously more complicated by that one gap year, so to speak, in between the COVID year, like you mentioned, and in between this ruling of 5 for 5. It's one thing if you just kind of graduate college basketball and move on, right? It's another thing if you feel like you're missing out on the payment aspect of it, and we're talking hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. So I get where these guys are coming from. It's big life-changing money. Could be a good situation that they feel like they were slighted on, and they're not wrong. I mean, that's a really unfortunate way to fall. It's kind of one of those like, hey, life ain't always fair, but also the NCAA is kind of a mess. So like, you might be able to get what you deserve in terms of pay.
Yeah, that's it. And there are other examples of this in other professions, right? Where you just it is about the timing. I still go back to it just was unnecessary. It was arbitrary that they started now. Maybe they
Hmm.
couldn't get it agreed to. I know there've been rumblings of this for a while, but if they had done this last year, they could have saved themselves a lot of headache. But like you said, that's exactly why you don't you don't do it because maximize chaos. And yeah, this might be one of the most disruptive decisions we've seen. And that's saying something because we've seen a lot of disruption with the
Yeah.
portal and the way it just spun out of control. But this has potential to really take off. And Norlander said something interesting where it's like several coaches he talked to said they would not do this because they don't want to disrupt what they already have in terms of their dynamics on their team.
Hmm. Hmm.
But when this becomes a reality, when you actually have this player now, this is real, and they're reaching
Yeah.
out to you, are coaches really going to turn that down if they have a
Right.
proven commodity who's an experienced 4 year player that we know
Right.
the importance of those guys in college basketball? So I don't know. I think
Agreed.
if this does happen, and it seems like it will, it's going to have a huge factor. And we're going to, for the next month plus, be talking about going back over all these lineups and rosters again and having to start fresh because it could really just disrupt everything.
This is why I get like daily podcasts make sense. Weekly podcasts make sense because we blink and it's like something else has happened. Summer used to be the slow season. You used to be able to kind of watch pickup games on Franklin Street, knowing that the guys are returning. They're just hanging out with students, shooting, hanging out, challenging them, playing one on one, playing horse, playing knockout, whatever it is on the court. And that was it. Simpler times. And now we're talking millions of dollars of cash flow, someone coming back from the NBA, guys from Gonzaga going back to Spanish League. I mean, it's an international game. It always has been, but college basketball wasn't a part of that international game, and now it's just clearly enmeshed in all of it. So, man, a lot going on to keep us on our feet. It will be interesting when all this kind of plays out, and we'll see what it means for UNC. You think Mike Malone is over there thinking, "Man, I don't know why I came back to college."
I think he's too busy jumping out of planes to be worrying about
Clearly,
any of
yeah.
this
Maybe that's
in a
why he's
way that
doing it as a
can't
distraction.
control.
Yeah,
Maybe. I mean, I think he's absolutely locked in and seeing this as, if needed, as an opportunity. But again, barring somebody not making it to campus, I think their roster is more or less set. But
yeah,
yeah, it's going to be really interesting to track. So we'll see what happens, and then this year, but also you think about next year too, the impact on the high school players as well. You
yep.
have these guys who are next year seniors can stay. So you have the majority of seniors are not going to exhaust their eligibility. What does that mean for the class of 27 in high school? if this
Mhm.
happens this year, what does it mean for high school players coming in who thought they were going to at least get a chance to crack a rotation, in some cases start, and now their playing time is severely reduced in some cases.
Yeah. And Peach Jam going on right now, right?
That's right. So yeah, we go right from
What a
Summer
time.
League and
Yeah.
all of this news to Peach Jam that started on the 14th of July. That's the big end of summer tournament for Nike that happens every year. And that's the really like their masters, I guess,
Yeah.
of high school basketball AAU, and the big one that everybody gets excited about. A couple of prospects down there, quite a few that actually have Carolina offers, and we can get more into this maybe next week, but
Yeah.
um, it is an exciting time because you get to see these guys have big performances down there, and then how does that translate to the following year? We've seen guys like the Duke guys like Cooper Flag and Cam Boozer had big Peach Jam performances. Caleb didn't maybe as much because he was playing a different role, but you still get to see these guys before they become stars the next year, which is pretty exciting. This year, there's several players that have Carolina offers, and several of them are also in the top 10 prospects as well who've had big starts to the tournament. Beckham Black, great name.
What a name. Wow.
He is by 247 Sports the number one overall player in the class right now.
Great.
Also, the top point guard as well. He's working on setting visits, and it's thought that he may set a visit to Carolina after Peach Jam. His brother is in the NBA, Anthony Black. He played at Arkansas a couple years ago. And this is a player that brings elite playmaking, vision, very fluid athlete. And he started off really strong here. Scored 22 points in the first game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists,
Mm,
4 of 9 from three.
nice.
Um, and I mean, he just consistently stuffs the stat sheet. And that's really on line with his averages throughout the season here. So he's somebody that I'm really excited about. If that wasn't enough, the 22 points the first game, the second game, he went for 37 on 14 of 20
I like that
shooting.
trajectory.
Yeah,
52. Let's keep
yeah.
going.
Yeah, so he and then had 5 rebounds and 4 assists as well. So
Nice.
somebody that is really going to do it all on offense at the point guard position, that seems to fit really well with Carolina basketball historically, but I think also with Michael Malone. Um, and so we'll see how that recruitment continues. But he's also somebody on the defensive end that can really get after it as well. So somebody to watch. Hopefully, we'll have news even by next week about a visit this fall from Beckham Black. A couple other guys that I just wanted to highlight while we're talking about Peach Jam. DeMarcus Henry, he's a 6'7" or 6'8" wing. His brother plays football at Ohio State. His late father, also played in the NFL. And he's somebody that Carolina Malone has really been in contact with a lot here recently. And he's high on Malone's list of targets for next year in the high school class. His first game, 25 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. And, again, seeing these guys, these are top 10 prospects who right away just come in and perform. That says something because the lights are bright at Peach Jam. We've seen even what was it, a couple of years ago where LeBron James was coaching because I think Bryce was there. So you have big names who come down to this tournament. There's a lot of attention on it. And these guys are performing at a really high level. So there's a couple of guys I wanted to highlight that have offers, and we're hoping that Henry will also set a visit here pretty soon as well.
Yeah, that's great. Always nice to see the future kind of come into focus a little bit and see some of those guys shine, which is awesome. Great event, Peach Jam. Appreciate the breakdown there, and just want to wrap up this show talking a little bit about college baseball as well. We know the Heels heartbreak last month coming up just short. Really thought they were gonna pull that out and get their first ever College World Series. Didn't quite happen, but the good news is well, first of all, we used up all the good luck on the Canes with their Stanley Cup. So sorry, Tar Heels. That was part on me. We do have a good roster coming back. And similar to the Canes, a team that's set up for success next season, Carolina baseball looking the same.
Oh, it's going to be really exciting. So I watched the first couple rounds of the draft on that Saturday. Uh, the draft being when it was during the midst of the World Cup as well. And you have all these summer league games. It was kind of buried. I preferred it was a couple years ago they did it during the week, prime time. But regardless, it was fun to follow. And Carolina guys, Jake Schaffner went 20th. He was projected around 70s somewhere in there.
Hmm.
So to see him go as high as he did was exciting. But for next year, Gavin Gallagher was expected to be a top 5 round pick, and somebody who was one of the top 200 prospects on MLB on their site, and he doesn't get drafted. And the thought is, well, we don't have the full story. The thought is that they got to a certain point in the draft, and his representative said, "Look, you're not going to be able to sign him at this point." And they got a good NIL package to come back to Carolina. But
Hmm.
Gavin was somebody that we didn't expect to be back. He'll be back for his senior year.
It's awesome.
The 5-and-5 rule helps these guys too, because if that didn't exist, he wouldn't have leverage next year, but he could
Hmm.
potentially come back a following season. So he has a little bit more leverage in the signing process next year. The captain, the leader, somebody that really can do it all, won a Gold Glove for Carolina at second base this year. So defensively, he's going to be one of your top defenders. And then offensively, while his numbers tick down a little bit, he still is going to be one of the consistent bats in your lineup, has some power as well. Was one of the top 3 home run hitters for Carolina this year, along with Nicholson and Paulson, who are also back. So you
Mm-hmm.
have those 3 guys back. You have some power back, and those are 3 of your infield spots too. Uh, so really exciting because I didn't expect all of those guys to be back.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have Caden Glauber, the freshman sensation, back with
So good.
Jackson Rose, who is one of my favorites because I'm left-handed, and he's just a nasty lefty. You love to see those guys and just competitor too. And I think I mentioned to you James Voorhees, who's coming from Cal State Northridge, was a freshman last year. Just love the last name because of the Jason movies. I'm not a huge horror or slasher fan, but my wife and I get into it every Halloween,
Yeah.
and he's got to come out to the Jason theme music. I
It
just
has
can't
to.
see any
Yeah.
way around it. But this guy is potentially going to be a starter. He could stay in the bullpen, but either way, that gives you 3 of the best arms in the country. Not to mention Walker McDuffie's back. Not to mention the freshmen that will come in as well. So it's been a pretty impressive offseason already by Scott Forbes and company. They have a really good shot to return to Omaha. You never know with that tournament,
Sure.
but they're going to be in position. I would expect them to be a top 10 team in the country going into the year.
I love that. As much as I watched, I really did realize how much of a leader Gavin was for the team, and he really became the face of it and has been. And so to have him back, have a vocal leader and just a guy like that on the field who can do it on both ends is really stellar. Do you think there's a little bit of a 2016 to 27 Carolina basketball redemption chip on the shoulder of these guys?
I've talked about that, and I think, man, watching him in the press conference and just seeing the emotions and the passion, I think there could
It could
be. I
be,
mean,
yeah.
he gives me Joel Berry vibes of we didn't get it done last year. I'm coming back for
Yep.
another year. Because I remember you and I were waiting for Barry and Pinson both. Didn't they both declare? Or maybe it was the following season.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't
yeah.
remember. But
I know
one
what
of
you're
those
talking
years
about.
we were waiting to come back. But I do think it hit him in a different way. And I would not be surprised if he has his best season and takes that team to the next level. So yeah, that's the narrative I'm running with,
Yeah,
because
I'm here
at
for it.
some point they have to get over the hump. At
They
some
have
point
to.
this has to happen. It just has to be a matter of time because really what you have to do is just get in that position enough, and they should be able to break through.
I'm gonna sound so salty and petty, but like versus an Oklahoma team that just wasn't that good. They got hot. They were good. I'll give them credit where it's due, but it was so frustrating knowing the ups and downs versus how consistent Carolina baseball had been all year that that's the
Well,
team. But that's
that
baseball. That's the College World Series. That is it. And that's why it's so hard to win.
That's exactly it. It's college baseball. And that's been the frustration of these College World Series over the years. But it reminded me to take it back to basketball real quick because Oklahoma had one of the most ridiculous runs in terms of beating top teams in a tournament. They had the biometrics, the hardest path of all time, beating number 2 Georgia Tech twice at Georgia Tech in the regionals. Then they beat Georgia twice,
Hmm.
number 3 in the College World Series, and number 5
It's
Carolina twice in the
outrageous.
finals. It reminded me of Arizona, and this one's probably still going to hurt for Carolina fans who are of our age or older, but 1997, Miles Simon in Arizona
Yep.
beat three number ones on the way to the national championship, including Vince Carter and Jameson and Cota and those guys in '97.
God,
Uh,
you just
it
list those
felt,
names, and I'm like, how did that team not win a championship? Yeah,
and then the next year too, we're in the Final Four and lost to Utah. Yeah, those were some rough Final Four nights for me as a young fan. But
yeah,
it just made me think of that kind of run because they were the best team. There was no question. They were even one of their players said that Deaton LaChance for Oklahoma said, if we play the Yankees tonight, I'm not concerned. That was the level of confidence,
that's
just
crazy.
the
Yeah,
egregious level of confidence they had, and it worked out for them. So
yeah.
let's hope that Carolina can be that hot team next year. It's time. I'm ready, and would be so happy for one like Gavin to be the guy to hold up that trophy on the last day of the season.
That'd be awesome. So what I'm hearing is you're ready to book your flight to Omaha, and we'll get Badams to get the Airbnb, and we'll run it back like we did Kansas. Great.
I
See
think
y'all
he
there.
already has the Airbnb. He's already on me about booking, so I think he's already made the
Good,
travel
good, good,
plans at
good.
this point.
Yeah, I'm loving it. Because you fully expect them to be back at least in the College World Series. So, it's great, man. That's great to hear.
Yeah, it's exciting. So February can't get here fast enough. Usually they start on that Valentine's weekend. So Carolina baseball plans plan accordingly. Make sure that you're multitasking and planning ahead. But that is a fun time of the year because that's also the peak of college basketball season too.
And your wife is super aware of this time of year by now, I'm sure.
And she is, but her birthday is also February 13th. So I am very
You
aware
got
of
to
that time of year.
you have to be careful. Yeah, it's
Yes,
always a fine
yes,
balance, like anything.
that's
Um,
right.
Great stuff. Yeah, appreciate the legal breakdown of NCAA. Point out to Caleb Wilson, just doing Caleb Wilson things. He's our second point out in a row. Last week we pointed out to him for the draft, catching up on all that news. This week pointing out for his performances. Next week pointing out for just being Caleb Wilson. I don't know. Let's shout out to point out to Gavin as well because man, Gavin and his loyalty coming back to Carolina, something special to be said for loyalty in this day and age. And yeah, also you gotta love how much Caleb Wilson is just playing to rep Carolina. You know, we got a little MJ 2.0. Proud to be a Tar Heel playing in Chicago. Life is good in summer league. I'm loving it.
I fully expect him to wear some kind of Carolina gear under his jersey, just like MJ did. So,
Fully.
yeah. And the other thing is, he's just so likable. You and I talked
Incredibly.
offline about the fact that not all stars at that level are that likable. Understandably, it takes a certain type of personality. But much like Steph Curry, who doesn't like Steph Curry?
Yeah, he's
Um,
yeah.
besides app fans, that one game that you were at. But who doesn't like Steph Curry? And I feel that way about Caleb Wilson. He's just so likable. So yeah, I couldn't think of anyone else. It was like I want to mix up the point outs every week, but we might as well just reserve a spot for him on a weekly basis at this point.
Absolutely. That Steph story is a story for another time, but I will just say that a few of us painted up first row, yelling at him all day, all game, drops 9 3-pointers and scores 38 points. That's Steph. Let's see what Caleb can do. Appreciate you being on, Jonathan. Thanks everybody for listening in. And as always, go Heels.
Go Heels.